welcome to the last session at JCON for our first day of JCON. There are 2 more session days to come, and then at Friday we'll have the workshop day. Welcome everybody. This is Maven Birds of a Feather talk.
Hello to Richard.
Hey Karl-Heinz, and I have Karl-Heinz, Hervé, and Martin with me. And before we dive into the talk, let me take 1 minute to thank our sponsors for helping out with the financial things or the financial side of the conference. So please make sure to visit our sponsors and check out their products, because they make this conference possible, and that we give away tickets to Java user groups for free. So that being said, this session is a little bit different than the other sessions that we ran today. This is a birds of a feather session, which means this should be very interactive. You have the possibilities to unmute yourself if you want to join the discussion, and we welcome you to do that. Or you can use the chat and write a question to the chat if you want to do this. If you want to join the discussion, be aware that this session is recorded and will end up on YouTube. So that's gonna happen. And if you don't want to be on the recording, just drop your question on the chat then. So with me today is Karl-Heinz, the chair of the Apache Maven PMC, Hervé and Martin, both are committers, and this is a royalty when you do a Maven BOF, because now we have the chance to ask our questions and discuss about things that you always wanted to know about Maven or what's happening in the Maven universe. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, Richard. This is Karl-Heinz speaking. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Hello, Hervé speaking. Yeah. And Martin?
Good.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Good evening.
Very good. Okay. So how is this working? We do not have any slides. So this is the last slide that I have here. And I just leave this here. Maybe it gives you some inspiration about the things that you want to talk about. Oh, and it won't let me, but okay. I'll get that back in a minute. And if there are any questions, please feel free to ask them. Start now. You can unmute yourself.
Whoever wants to speak, yeah, please raise your hand and start speaking or writing into the chat, please.
Hi, Cole.
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps to start, was a good last session from Karl-Heinz was a good introduction to Maven 4 actually, and I'm using Maven since Maven 1, so migrated from ARNT then to Maven 1, or did the first steps with Maven 1, but this was just yes, the first steps, but the majority of work we did in Maven 2, Maven 3. So I know a little bit of the ecosystem and also about plugins and so on. And for one customer, a couple of years back, actually 10 years back, this was the first time I issued this topic, was I was tasked to build their tool chain from their own build tool they implement. So this was for a huge bank, and they built their own build tool, build and reporting tool, let's say, what Maven also does. And the task was to migrate this to Maven, to migrate their tool chain to Maven. And their hot and must requirements they had was they wanted to know or have it similar like it was before, because developers knew this already. And they want to extend the build, the default life cycle. So default life cycle, 21 phases. And from these 21 phases, they want to have a 22nd phase to publish this. So after deploys, they want to call publish, Maven publish, to publish to their environments, to their staging, their staging environment. So this was the goal. And yes, shame on me, I did this for them, and I had to do really Maven internal things here to get this to work. And so yes, it worked, but it was so hard that they stuck on this specific Maven version. And my question here is, I have watched out or had a look on what Jason Van Zyl built with this, what was it called, Takari? I think this is this a couple of years back. And my question here is this a really a rare case that I think most of the people, 99%, use this default lifecycle with Maven install and the clean lifecycle and perhaps the site lifecycle, but that's it. Isn't there any, or is this planned, or are there any requirements or that people wants to have this feature to extend Maven in this kind of things, that we really have this? Not let's say to make it easy to extend the default lifecycle or to have an own one.
I don't know which one of us should answer that, but yes, there had some requirements over the time, but to be honest, it is very, very rare. To be honest, the point is that you have to make a difference between what you do via a Maven deploy. That means producing the artifacts and deploying them to your repository manager. And then the thing what you called a publish, to install or deploy them on the target systems. These are two different things. Yes, you can extract or enhance the build lifecycle technically. Yes, you can do that. It's really hard. It is technically makeable, but most of the time it is not necessary. We have for Maven 4 an idea and already some kind of implementation for the wrapper lifecycle to make it easier to handle the wrapper part here. But I'm not sure if that's a good way to offer that way to make that customizable, because as you already said, 99% of the people, if not even saying 99% of the people, are using the default one, and the rest of them can be handled by using a deploy to a repository manager and then write a job which deploys to a particular machine or something like that, but which is not Maven itself, because Maven is from the idea a build tool, to be honest, and not a deploy tool to a particular environment, a test production or QA environment or something like that. So to be honest, we have thought about that based on the life cycles, because there are some ideas about enhancing the life cycle in several ways. But at the moment, we might think about that for Maven 5, maybe. I'm not sure if it really will become in reality at the moment, because there are so rare cases. We have some changes which might related to lifecycle, which is related to get rid of profiles or something like that. If you want to build something like a C++ part where you load some native code or something like that. But at the moment, it is not really possible to do that or easy makeable with Maven itself at the moment. That's one of the edge cases which are not very easy to handle at the moment. So to be honest, I don't see any extension in that way at the moment.
Yeah, would be the easiest solution now would be to really trigger or to call a goal, write a plugin and to call a goal on that, and to not extend the life cycle. And
exactly, that was another very easy solution. Write your own plugin, and that makes the job for whatever you deploy via SSH or whatever you think about that. Yeah, exactly.
But try to mitigate or try to get the customer on that side to agree that's not a good solution to extend Maven in this.
Yeah, to be honest, there are some situations where it makes sense to extend Maven. There are some extension points. You can write an extension for several ways. You can write it, for example, build extensions. For example, the RPM Maven plugin, for example, is such kind, the different packaging type, for example. Or you write a real extension which handles completely different cycles or something like that, which the Maven daemon uses, and for, as you already mentioned, Takari uses in some ways, several things of that, or where the internally things can be changed with writing an extension. That's possible to inject your part into the real internal life cycles. That is possible, but you should really hardly think about that if you really need that. Yeah.
it needs maintenance for sure. Yeah.
Exactly, that's the point here. And most of the time, the problem is to keep that up to date and not to integrate that too far in Maven core or make the dependency not too hardly coupled to the Maven core, which is one of the problems we are trying to make more easier in Maven 4, because we are cleaning up the internal things and trying to make a cleaner API, a clear API, and close the rest up, which is not possible in many ways, because based on Java version, maybe we can do that, for example, with sealed classes with JDK 7, then that would be an option here, but I'm not sure what we really decide here at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So Heiko, this sounds like you should be a Maven committer, or have you ever committed to the project?
No, they didn't commit. Don't ask me why, but these are some nice features or so, or yes, or a couple of plugins or so. Would like to, let's say, to discuss with someone of the team who have more, the insights, and I'm the user, and I'm also, let's say, doing plugin development, all these things, but I didn't commit to Maven so far.
So if you like to discuss, just join the dev mailing list in particular, the first step, and maybe the ASF Maven Slack channel, for example. Then you get more insight and maybe can more discuss things and get more detailed answers or detailed questions, what you like to know, or make some contributions to different plugins, for example, via pull requests or something like that. Please do so if you like.
I think many of us, in fact, started as users and then eventually started doing small contributions, bigger contributions. I don't know Percy or Hervé or Karl-Heinz because they're way longer with the project than I am, but I started out as a user as well. And at one point I found myself working around a particular bug, thinking, hey, this might be something I could rather fix instead of work around. And that's where all the trouble started.
That's exactly the same career path I had. The same thing, yeah.
And eventually meeting people during a physical conference, discussing with people is also a good way to get a first level of interaction, of rapid feedback. And eventually, if the pull request is ready, just merge it.
Yeah, very good things, yeah. Yeah, please try to contribute some way. Maybe you find something which can be improved in some ways, or make it easier, or you have a good idea or something like that. Create a Jira or discuss that on the dev mailing list at first, and then maybe on the ASF chat or something like that. That would be a good idea to have some more inputs from users with a more detailed information or something like that. Yeah, that's a good idea, yeah. Yeah, the link here in the chat on the mailing list is exactly the point where you should start here.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Heiko, do you have other questions? Anybody else has some questions? You can use the chat. You can unmute yourself if you like to share or ask a question. So in the meantime, while you make up your mind, I have a question which fits perfectly here. So how can people stay up to date with the Maven project? So I heard the mailing list is a good place to start. Also, there's a Slack channel. Harry just posted it here. Where do I start? What do I do?
Yeah, the point is, depending on what kind of information you would like to be updated with. If you really like to get more insights, the dev mailing list would be a good choice here. Yes, of course. There is an announcement list which contains every plugin Maven core release which we are announcing. And if you subscribe to that, then you will at least getting this information. Or on the Maven Apache org/plugins, for example, for a list of plugins of the current versions, something like that. Also, the shared component is also a site there where you can take a look here, and these things as well, that is possible also. Also, the Slack channel, if you like, you can subscribe there and take a look and get more insights here. That's absolutely doable and should be doing if you are interested in that. And of course, what I can strongly recommend is to read all the release notes which we are posting there, because we are trying to get most of the information into that.
Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a Maven, I'm a Twitter Maven guy, and I like to stay on Twitter. There are also Twitter accounts I can follow, right?
Yes, true. That's true. Yeah, there is a Twitter account, exactly. Yeah.
And there's also one that has all the plugin releases, right?
It has all the releases. Yes, I have to admit at the moment there is some problems in there which is not 100% up to date. But if something is missing, just ask me or whoever, yeah, from the team. Please do that.
Okay, great. Then we have another tip from Heiko. Maybe Karl-Heinz, you can respond to that.
Yeah, there is a tip here. Use the Enforcer plugin in all my projects to clean up duplicate dependencies and dependency tree. Yes, the Enforcer plugin can do a lot of things. You can make using the Enforcer rules to make sure you are not using different version or subversion, patch version or something like that from the same dependency, from transitive dependencies and so on. That's a good way. Or you can make sure that you are using most recent version of the plugins and things like that can be done. There's a lot of rules which you can use, and I strongly would recommend to use the Enforcer plugin. It really helps in many ways, because many people don't see it as a good idea, but I can say from the expertise and the practice here, it's a very good thing to do that. It helps a lot in many ways. There's also the dependency plugin to analyze the dependencies to make your list clear, which are the dependencies you are really using, which you have defined but not using, or which you are using, which you not have defined, something like that. That's a very good thing. You should analyze that from time to time. You can do that also with IntelliJ or with Eclipse in the dependency tree and take a look in there. Define the scope correctly, things like that. That's a very good practice to do that, yeah. Also, a very important thing is that you define every plugin which you're using in your build, define it via a plugin management with the version and the appropriate configuration you would like to use, and make really clear every plugin. I mean, really every. I had some discussions about on a user group where many people realized and using that already, but missed some plugins, for example, the install and the deploy plugin, because many people thought that was part of the core. No, that's not part of the core. That's really a plugin, and you should define it and give the version in your POM file or in a parent version or parent POM, something like that, and define that.
I believe Maven 4 will actually give you a warning if you do not do it. Exactly for that same reason.
Yeah, that's one of the improvements as well. Yeah, exactly.
I will add something obvious. If Maven sends you a warning, just fix it.
Yeah, very good way. Yeah, because in Maven 3, there has been, yeah, it's really a basic. Yeah, to be honest. Yeah, exactly the same as if you get a compiler warning that you should fix. You should fix that. Please do that, because it helps a lot. Really. That means for Maven as well for Java, for the Java code as well.
Or at least investigate why the warning is there, and maybe maybe if you can't fix it, then just annotate and say, hey, I looked into it, and this is something the compiler cannot prove. Happens every now and then. Yeah.
Something like raw conversions or something like that. If you make a typecast,
precisely, yeah.
Something like that. And I've seen a lot of them which are made accidentally and showed some problems. For example, in tests, I've seen that very often, people not using the correct generic definition or something like that. Using var from JDK 11 can be very helpful there, and you can get rid of the warning on that way as well. But it's really helpful to take a deep look on the warnings. Yeah, that's very, very important. Yes, for Maven as well for your Java code.
Great. Then, Martin, you talked before about Maven daemon. Can you please quickly elaborate? What is that for those who don't know?
Yes, that's right. Well, I talked about it at some other conference, and I even did a quick demo there. The whole idea of the Maven daemon is that you can actually speed up your build quite significantly, and we use a couple of tricks for that. One of them being that we keep one JVM warm. And oh, wait a second, please.
I've posted the link to the YouTube for of DevOps France.
Okay, Martin just went out for a second. Maybe Harry, you can take over. And before Martin continues on Maven Daemon, I have a question regarding Maven Daemon and Maven Wrapper. Oh, he's back. Okay, we can.
Yeah.
Martin, okay.
I'm sorry, I got disturbed by my daughter who couldn't catch sleep.
No worries.
Yeah, I think she was worried when I started talking about demons. So that was why I was distracted a bit. Maven Daemon. So this is in fact a relatively new development in the Maven ecosystem, but also one that well, I can get pretty excited about. The whole idea is that well, right now, if you look at why people perceive Maven as being slow, a lot of time goes into starting up the JVM, loading your plugins, parsing the project definition, and eventually figuring out what to do given the command that you issued. Oh, you ran package. That means the default lifecycle, package phase. That means these plugins, these goals, etc., etc., etc. A lot of work. Not to mention the fact that we actually need to boot up a JVM. And as we all know, that is still a relatively expensive process. What the Maven Daemon tries to do is cache a lot of these things in a way that the JVM is kept warm, your project is kept in memory, your plugin definitions are kept in memory. So the next time you build the same project, everything is already there. And we can start executing your command a lot quicker because all that work is, well, basically already done before you even start typing. That's one thing in which Maven Daemon can speed up your build. And another important one is that you get a multi-threaded build by default. A word of warning, though, is that if you are using a plugin that is not ready for multi-threaded builds, you might want to switch this off because it might actually break your build. But the most, I think even all plugins that ship with Maven itself are in fact multi-threaded. Karl-Heinz, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all of our own plugins are ready for this.
Yeah, and they are, yeah.
They are, right.
If you find a plugin that is not ready for that, you found how to contribute. That's perfect example of that.
Perfect,
something
yeah.
useful.
That's a very good addition, Hefe. That's a great way to get started. And a nice additional feature that you will get right now if you manually run a multi-threaded build, you might notice that the logging of all those threads is being thrown at your screen at the same time whenever it happens, which in fact makes the build output pretty unusable, if you ask me. Maven Daemon collapses that and just waits for all the threads to finish and then spits out the output one by one. So it appears to be happening in chronological order, even though it is not. And especially if you have some CPU intensive plugins, this can actually mean a lot of improvement in your speed as well. I'm looking at, for instance, the Scala compiler plugin. It's not the plugin per se, but the Scala compiler is known to be very CPU intensive. You can imagine if you have 5 modules and all of them contain Scala code, and you have 10 CPU cores or 20 or whatnot, this can actually be a big improvement simply utilizing these cores rather than doing them one by one as Maven would do by default.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds...
Oh, sorry, Richard. Yeah, you first.
Yeah, you go ahead.
That's exactly what Martin says. There you can improve your build speed. If you use parallelized build via -t, already it can be improved a lot with a large number of modules.
Yeah.
Also with a small number, for example, 20 or 40 or something, that can decrease a lot. but of course with the drawback that you can't really read the output here, and that exactly makes the Maven daemon more easier to read. That's one of the most important things, and handle other stuff as well. So there is a difference between using a -uppercase T and using the Maven daemon. There is a performance difference. Yes, I recommend also using the Maven daemon if you could like to use that, and it makes sense definitely. There is another. Sorry, Martin.
If I may add to that, it doesn't quite make sense to use it on your build server, by the way, because often build servers are provisioned for you by your organization, and maybe they're even running builds inside a Docker container, which gets thrown away after your build is run. Well, then the Maven daemon also gets thrown away. It's especially something that you can use a lot if you have a stateful build server, or if you're running Maven on your own machine, because there skipping the JVM startup and skipping plugin loading can actually save you a lot of time.
So the usual case on a Maven, on a build server, I would recommend to use a -T to use a parallel build at least. To be honest, the usage of the parallel build is already 10 years old. This started and introduced with Maven 3. So it's not very new something. It is already very old, to be honest.
Yeah.
So one other thing here on the chat here is Maven wrapper related to the Maven wrapper. I read that the Maven wrapper will be included in Maven 4. How can I use that compared to the usage now? You can use that already for Maven 3. That works out of the box. You can use that. There is a definition on the properties file in your Git configuration or whatever you use for version control, and define the version you will like to download. And that will change there, and you can just simply change that, because the version is only referencing to download it from Maven Central. You cannot use that at the moment with Maven 4 because we have no release in Maven Central yet. And that's the point that you can't use that. In Maven 4, there is, if I correctly remember, you can call the Maven wrapper with a special goal, if I correctly, that it will create this configuration to initialize that setup in one way. But the difference here should be very small here, if I correctly remember. I need to reread that, but I'm not really up to date with that. Sorry for that.
On that, the inclusion of Maven wrapper in Maven 4 was something that was investigated for 6 months, and we went away from it. Maven wrapper is better managed outside Maven, and it can install absolutely any Maven version. So the work where the wrapper was included in Maven 4, so there were some discussions about it, there were some writing about it, has been in fact removed. It has been changed back to a classical Maven wrapper as you know it nowadays. So it's past. The story you read is not true anymore.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, I wasn't completely 100% aware of that. Yeah, there was some extraction of that, so that was my misinformation. Sorry for that. Okay, some more question on the Maven wrapper. Otherwise, okay, thanks for the thanks here. So someone else did ask about, did I get it right from the last session that with Maven 4, the settings model is better customizable? Let's say getting the settings from different sources, not only from the settings XML or from command line, would be great to improve Maven builds on CI pipelines. The question is what kind of customization you need in the settings file, because the settings file should only contain your repositories where you consume your artifacts from, and maybe some credentials for accessing things like that you should use there. For example, the Jenkins has some config file provider plugin which can replace the information about the passwords and things like that, or SSH keys if they're really needed. A different thing if you like to deploy on a server. That doesn't make sense here, but that's a different story. Or do you mean something else?
Yeah, the question came actually from me and Karl-Heinz, and it is again about how to, let's say, customize the build pipeline, or on a CI build pipeline, where I, let's say, want to set a mirror, for example, set specific proxies, or what I also use, I want to tweak and I want to override the local repository, because there are plugins that use, for example, a database driver. And So I must point to the database driver. This is the schema plugin that is used for site generation, for example, to visualize or to create a site documentation of a database schema. And that's just an example. And for that, I need to point to the right M2 repository. And it's different on every location. For example, on Travis or on GitHub Actions, this is specific to the runner. And my question was, I heard your last session, and you mentioned that you plan to, you have already done changes to the settings model, and if this is available for the users, let's say, or if
okay, now I understand your question. I said that we have extracted the model reading and things like that in the same way we extracted some parts of the POM reading to make that easier to pluggable in future. We are not yet there, but we are starting out there. And the second point is, which you're mentioning about, is that you would like to configure different M2 repositories. If you are talking about an M2, we are talking about a local cache, if I correctly understand that. The question is why you need to do that for something like that. You could consume that from a repository manager, and there you can configure the different available sources where you consume artifacts from, in which order you can define that. That is possible to do that in a repository manager, either in Artifactory or in Nexus. You can configure that. And the credentials can be injected into the settings file for that particular build during your CI running, either on Travis, on GitHub Actions. You have some kind of injections where you can inject the credentials like API keys or whatever you like. That's possible. So you usually don't need to really change the settings itself, as far as I know. Maybe you can give me some more detailed example, and we talk a lot within the next days on a separate way on that, and to get a more deeper look on that, if so I can more see if that's really a request, an idea which is useful or not, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers the question more or less.
Yeah, in particular to your last talk, for sure, yes.
Yeah, okay, good to know. So other questions here?
If there are no more questions right now, take your time, figure them out. I have some more that interest me. So I wanted to double down on the Maven daemon, because this is really exciting. Martin, you said it will improve the build speed tremendously. Can you give an example? What numbers are we looking at?
I spoke about this last week on JavaZone, and I was feeling a bit adventurous, to be honest. I had a demo project where I thought, well, I know that this here it works as expected, but instead of running the demo project, I took the Maven code base itself and ran a clean build with just Maven as we know it today, and then I ran it again with the Maven daemon, and I have to admit that I forgot about the exact numbers, which is a bit of a shame, isn't it? I know it was impressive, but it's less impressive if I only say it's impressive.
I think I have a new computer at home. 1 hour ago, I tested building the whole Maven source code with MVND. It took a few minutes. It was incredible to build 400 modules that were never built before in just a few minutes.
Okay, at what time were you looking before you used the Maven daemon?
Using the Maven daemon. The key fact is that given it was 400 modules that were completely independent, I have a new computer with 20 cores. So I was just getting 20 times faster than my usual Maven mono-threaded build.
And if we are feeling adventurous, we could just try it again, right? I mean, if it works on JavaZone, it might work here as well.
Oh, yeah. That's exciting. Let's do it.
Give it a try.
Yeah,
right?
It's really a question of the number of core and how much your modules are not interdependent. If you have a build that is not interdependent, it's just a multiplier of the number of cores you are using in parallel. If you have some dependencies, of course, you will win less.
Yeah, exactly. It's related to the dependency tree of the modules, not of the jar files or something like that, or the classes, or really on the modules. That's the dependency trees of the modules. And that implies the number of parallel threads, which makes sense. Most of the time I've made the experience that, for example, starting with 3 or 5 threads, it will increase your build time enormously. That is not a problem usually. And most of the time, many computers today have that. There is really an improvement. I have used for builds with 400, 800, and more than 1,000 modules, and that increases the build time a lot here. Only using the -T option, not the Maven daemon, just using the parallel option to use parallel threads.
Okay, great. So, Martin, do you want to share an example from JavaZone or?
Oh, I was thinking maybe I could just share my screen for a minute and well,
sure.
Fingers crossed, of course. But we'll see where we get, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. Go
Can
ahead.
I take the screen from you?
Yeah, go ahead, do it.
All right. Let me see. We have a terminal here. Is that a bit?
Yeah.
Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Give us a little bit zoom, a little bit.
A little bit of zoom there.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, great.
Perfect.
Okay, I can't see all of you anymore, so let's go. This is just a Maven, a regular plain old Maven free, and I'm going to package it. This is a machine of a few months old, so should be relatively fast, right? But as you can see, the build is running sequentially, first of all. So it's building one module at a time, and it's building all of the modules in order. I remember when I was at JavaZone, I was just walking around the stage at this point, walking back and forth. But that's a bit odd to do that during an online session. So
let's take the time while this builds and answer another question that bugs me about the Maven daemon. So you told us before that this is a project that helps speed up the startup of the JVM. So nowadays, if I hear that everybody's go-to darling is use GraalVM, why can't the Maven project use GraalVM to speed up the startup of the JVM?
Simply because we are dynamically loading plugins during the runtime.
Yeah.
That exactly the blocker here completely.
That's a number one issue.
Yeah.
But for your information, MVND itself uses GraalVM because it doesn't, MVND, the launcher that talks to the daemon, that one, the launcher does not have any plugin, does not have any dynamicity that we can't, that can't support GraalVM. So this one is built with GraalVM. So that's one of the reasons why launching MVND is really fast.
Okay, that's great. So we can make one checkbox. We have that buzzword in here. It's if we have
exactly
native image support in here. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it's inside MVND. Yeah.
Okay. Did we make it to the end of the build? Almost. Okay, so
we're almost there.
Yeah, great.
So, what kind of machine is that, Martin?
This is an M1. Why you ask?
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I have in the meantime built that 5 or 6 times in the meantime, and M1 on my M1 here. So to be honest, I'm completely remembered to my Windows machine on work, which is extremely slow, 5 times slower than my M1. I'm building here an MVN package within 6 seconds without -T or something, just an MVN package.
You're not plugged in, right?
I'm sorry?
Martin, are you plugged into the AC?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But there we are. 2 minutes. That's definitely not the quickest build ever. Totally agree. Now I'm going to do. There was package, by the way. Did you compile or package?
Karl-Heinz.
I used the MVN package here.
Yeah, okay. Well, then I'll also do a package, but now with MVND.
Yeah, okay, just try that, and we will see.
The first thing that you see is that we don't get a lot of output here.
Yeah.
Because all these modules are being built in parallel, but the output is kept until the modules are built. We're now at module 15 out of 20, and we're only 20 seconds in the build.
Nice.
And here you see that at the end, the parallelism can't be achieved. So we are waiting for one single thread at the end. But the beginning was in parallel. That's where we won a lot of time.
But at the end, everything needs to be packaged in this Apache-Maven-4 whatever *GZ, and that's of course that's one of the last phases, and there everything gets together, so you can't parallelize anymore.
Exactly.
With the dependency tree that is visible in the documentation, you have a single line of dependencies.
We're now at 1 minute and 90%, so it is really a lot quicker. Might also be caused, by the way, Karl-Heinz, by the fact that I'm running Zoom and OBS and quite a few more things, but let's not discuss that. Let's measure the same machine.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And
50% approximately.
Same machine now has 1 minute and 10 seconds, which means we already shaved off from 246 to 110. Now, if I'm going to run it again, just one more time, so as to say.
And now what takes time is test execution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because all the other things are still there. We have the JVM, we have all the plugins and all the versions, everything is in memory. And with 20 seconds, we're already at 80% of the build. I have to say that last week it went quicker, so maybe having 50 browser tabs open doesn't help either.
I have to prevent to saying how many browser tabs I have open. And I have two browsers open at the moment.
Oh, only two.
Yeah, that I think that the third one doesn't make sense anymore.
Okay, you're only a pro with browser tabs if you have the plugin that allows you to have multiple lines of browser tabs. So
that will be a killer feature.
Yeah, but that is dropped another 10 to 14 seconds about something around that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So
the Maven makes very sense.
More, and we're now under 1 minute. So we went from 246 to under a minute on the exact same project.
Yeah. So it is possible to run the daemon on the M1 chip, as I see.
Yeah, that's a question here. So you compiled it on your own because the official distribution does not contain for M1, as far as I know.
Let me see. We can just see maybe it. Oh, it's a script. Yeah, of course.
MVND-V, no?
Would it?
So
yeah, so it is the AMD version of the client binary.
But I couldn't download that from the release side, so I have to take another look because that would be interesting too. Okay, I've seen on the release vote there had been some discussion about that, so I will take a look on that. Because
now I'm starting to get curious. What am I actually running?
This is great. We get a real deep look into the Maven internals now. Great. So great. Okay, but this is a great point to thank you first of all, Martin, for sharing this example and going out on a limb doing a demo that was not prepared. Thank you very much. And
no problem.
And just for your information, Martin, your MVND is a script. So it's not the Graal VM optimized
That is probably
version.
not the native executable indeed.
It's not a native. It's a slow one.
Which will in fact make it even a bit quicker probably.
Yeah.
Because the native executable should be faster than a shell script that I'm using today.
And this brings me to a topic that's always interesting to me and that I always like to talk about or ask about. So is it true that there's no company behind the Apache Maven build tool?
No, there is no company, nothing at all, completely no, absolutely done on volunteers. No exception about that.
That sounds crazy. In recent surveys, Maven had like a market share in builds for 70% plus in the Java ecosystem. So this is a really cool project, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the problems, to be honest, sometimes we have at the project, because many of us, or all of us, doing that in their spare time. Some of them are a little bit promoted by their companies. For example, Martin has twittered about that he can do some day work here, which is some kind of promoted to work on that. But any other of us is doing that in their spare time. So that's one of the issues we have, that we cannot say, okay, make more progress over the time, because we have not so many developers are working on that. And that, to be honest, for example, Maven 4 is, in the meantime, we are working on that for about 2.5 or 3 years, approximately, something.
I guess so.
Yeah, exactly. And that takes time. Yes, we have some people, a lot of people working on that, but we have a large ecosystem, as I've shown in the lecture before. We have 50 plugins, we have a lot of components and things like that. We need to update and maintain all of the time and fix all the bugs here, and that is a lot of work. And all of us are doing that in their spare time, and that's one of the issues. So it could be a useful thing that some people of us are being more sponsored for that, to be could work more of their time on the project. For example, I'm being sponsored with about $150 per month at the moment via GitHub. So that brings me a kind of a returnment. But of course, to be honest, that is no replacement for my income as a freelancer, for example. Don't get me wrong, I'm doing that because I like the project. I do that very, very likely because I like the project and I find it extremely interesting and learn a lot about that. But it would help to have maybe some sponsors on the developers. That would be a great thing, because, as you said, Richard, there are so many companies, and the market share is that large. So we are not, for example, to say it clear here, for example, Gradle is a large company which has a lot of employees, which has a lot of money, of course. But we don't. So that's one of the big things we have here in comparison. And to make a comparison, we are really a 100% open source project. No one is here somewhere hired or as running as an employee and working only on Maven here. Yeah. There are some which are sponsored with some time to work on the Maven project to help themselves, which makes absolutely sense. That is also a model to say, for example, a company says, okay, I will pay you because you're working on that project, because that brings us an improvement, because we have some bugs in there. Just work on that and help that project as well as for ourselves. That's a point as well. Yes, but that's true. There is no company behind that, completely not. But for sure, we need to say that, for example, the Maven central repository is completely sponsored by Sonatype, which is completely handling that on their own with some employees which are doing the complete maintenance, handling the new creation of group artifact ID, the permissions, the problems, and all the distribution on the networks which are working that, and maintaining the complete infrastructure of Maven Central, for example. I would say Hervé could tell more details about that. There had been already some talks about on some of the maintainers. I can't remember the name.
Joel
Olina, exactly. Yeah, exactly. He has given a very good talk about that. And then you see what kind of numbers we are talking about here. And that's a very, very big thing. And they're sponsoring that for about, in the meantime, 12, 15 years in the meantime. And that's a great thing also. They are sponsoring that completely. So yes, no company behind Apache Maven project, because it's an ASF, Apache Software Foundation project. So that's the point here.
Okay, so big shout out to Sonatype and also Info Support for sponsoring definitely Martin's time. And so what I got from this is there are two ways people or companies can help. One way is to sponsor the committers that are already there and doing the work, and the other way would be to provide an employee of the company to help on the Maven project. So the one thing is I think it's pretty straightforward. Giving money is pretty straightforward, even if the financial guys will tell you otherwise. But I think even more complicated is to provide a committer. How would that work for a company if a company says I would like to provide a committer for Apache Maven because we really use it and we want to give somebody time to help you?
Yeah, the point is you can't provide a committer. You can provide a developer, a contributor, exactly, and the contributor has to work on that and give some contributions over the time, create pull requests and work on the project. And after a time, we may maybe decide to make him or her a committer here. And then you can become a committer over the time, and then you can commit more things maybe. But the first step is to get and provide some pull requests, improvements somehow, just make some discussions, contributions in any kind. That could be improvements of documentation, finding bugs or testing, for example, testing Maven 4, for example, on your internal repositories, on your internal project, and give feedback if you have found some problems there. That would be a great thing here, for example, or any other thing which can be found. But just saying provided committer doesn't work, because to become a committer, you have to go through a process that takes time, a little bit time, maybe 5 to 6 months, maybe a little bit more, maybe even shorter, maybe depends on how it exactly works.
But the process is not so much paperwork, it's way more about providing meaningful contributions and showing that what you provide adds value to the project. Because the paperwork, I would really like to stress that that's relatively simple. It's literally 2 documents, one for you to sign, one for your company to sign. If your company has any legal person, and I think every company has those, then they look at it for a couple of hours and they are like, yeah, that makes perfect sense, and we could totally sign that.
Great. Okay, so Heiko, you have a roadmap for what you have to do in the next weeks or months. And I would like to point out that all the volunteer committers here doing a really great job, because what I found is people don't know about the version of Maven they're using, and this is a real big compliment, because it's so stable and backward compatible that they don't know what they're using. So great shout out and great compliment to all of you. The work that you're providing is really great, and this, for me at least, it does not bother me that Maven 4 takes longer, because I know that we are in good hands, and the stuff that I do with Maven will work in a few months also. So this is really great comfort, and it puts me to good sleep at night. So thank you very much for that.
Hopefully it does. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for the kind words, Richard.
Yeah, exactly. Some other detailed questions we are open for any kind of question, detailed plugins or how to do that, best practices or something like that. Or if that doesn't work here, you can shout out any of the committers here in that room as well, via Twitter, or maybe directly via the mailing list, or directly personally. There's no problem to do that. At least for me, that's no problem. I cannot speak for Javi or Martin.
Totally fine with that.
Okay, great. So we're nearing the end of our time slot. It was a great discussion. Thank you for joining this discussion. As you heard, if you have further questions, you can reach out to the guys here. Thank you for participating, and thank you all for staying up this late, or maybe getting up this early. It depends on where you are. And I hope you had a good time at JCON here today, and come back tomorrow for another few interesting talks. Thank you, everybody, and I hope to see you soon in person again.
Many thanks to you, Richard, and the organizers, and they help us all in background, in foreground, and all the stuff, and the technicians which helped to get that running. Thank you very much for all that.